Welcome to the Union Fitness Podcast, everyone. Here with your co-hosts, the
one, the only, the rock and the hard place. Me, CJ.
CEG and Todd Hammer, with our, unbelievably awesome mustache wearing, long hair looking, bad T-shirt rocking producer Josh over there in the house representing Penn State.
It's very thrifty, but it's not a thrift fine.
He's a thrifty guy.
Some would say hip. Others would say hipster.
I would say the mustache is hip. But
Bohemian.
today, we have another Penn Stater on the line.
We are.
They're coming to us live from the Windy City. My main dude, the man, the myth, the legend, Ryan No Way Nosack.
The Rhino, giving spears left and right.
He is Ryan, welcome to the show, brother.
What's up, guys? I am pumped to be here today. Thanks for having me on.
Well, we are pumped to have you. We've actually been meaning to do this one for a while now. We've talked about it innumerable times, I would say.
I've told Ham 90 times, and he's told me 89 times no, so blame him.
Damn, that ain't true, but I like it.
The band's back together. At one point, we were all working together. I was just a wee intern. I think you were a GA, and Ham was still an angry strength coach.
Now what am I?
Yeah, that's right. He was very angry.
Yeah. Thankfully, it went down once he got Tenzing, I think.
I was a happy strength coach. Well, Ryan, welcome to the show. So today you're going to drop some knowledge on us. I know you just got some big news about what you're going to be branching out doing. We just yesterday it dropped. The album dropped.
Well, I don't even know about it yet.
You don't know about the new Drake album?
I missed that one.
Good, because if it's a Drake album, it sucks. But if it's Rhino album, it's good. So, Rhino, for our listeners here, tell us about yourself. Where are you coming from? What are you doing here? Why are we talking to you, brother?
Brother?
Yeah, brother. Much like the Johnny Cash, much like the Johnny Cash song, I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. And I think about that often. I wouldn't be here today if our paths hadn't crossed at Robert Morris. But even going back further than that, I don't think I'd be here if I didn't hear you speak at Penn State a mere, 12, 13 years ago. So
I remember that talk.
You're great, man. It's great, life-changing.
He wrote his notes down on stone tablets.
Chiseled them. Chiseled them.
I still have them.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Did my undergrad at Penn State University, where I was able to start working in the weight room the summer of my sophomore year. Got involved with college athletics then, basically served as a volunteer strength and conditioning coach. Then after Penn State, I just kind of went where the job took me. I spent time working at Tennessee State University in Nashville, did an internship at Vanderbilt when I was there, came back up north, worked with Ham at Robert Morris, then went back down south, spent a few years at UNC Charlotte in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then most recently moved on to Chicago, where I was working at DePaul for the last 3.5 years. Recently left DePaul to run my own training business called Rhino Strength, and that's what I'm currently doing now.
My man. Well, hey, I want you to delve into the Tennessee State situation, because I remember we had this conversation. We knew each other, not super well, but you had a GA and were a young up and coming strength coach, and
Flo was going wild. He had Flo back there.
I think he cut it before Tennessee State.
No, I had it.
Okay.
The flow kept me going.
Yeah.
The flow. I know about flow now. But so he had a nice flow. You're working at Tennessee State. What happened?
It was a really chaotic situation that was just unfortunately out of my control from the first day that I arrived. I remember packing up all my stuff, like leaving Scranton, driving down, and I was promised as part of my GA to have a dorm room, like a meal plan, all my classes paid for. And it was kind of like this negative domino effect that occurred every single day that I was there. So I show up, my car's packed with all my stuff, and I was like, hey, I'm going to be a GA here. I was told that, I have a dorm paid for. Can I get all that situated? And I found out on day one that they don't have a dorm for me. So I don't have a place to live.
Nice.
So I'm basically scrambling to find a place. My boss at the time knew some kind of connection with housing, where I spent the next 3 weeks living on the couch in a basement dorm room of some guy I never. Really random. I basically just took all my stuff out of my car and I stored it in that room, and I was living out of my suitcase there. Then the next phase of that was I moved into a dorm room that the Tennessee State Athletics said that they were going to pay for me. After about a week and a half in that dorm room, I got a bill for like $1,800 that I was being charged for that time. I was like, what the hell is going on here? I got to get out. I was able to get that taken care of. Finally, my boss let me move into his place, where me and the other GA basically took over my boss's apartment, mind you, which was like an 800 square feet studio apartment. Both of us stayed there for about a month while my boss was I think living with his girlfriend at the time. So it took me about, I don't know, must have been about 6 or 8 weeks of basically living out of my suitcase before I finally found a place to live. Then I was promised basically tuition as part of my GA ship as well, and then that fell through the roof. I fell through the cracks. I had to basically chase down people week after week trying to get them to pay my bill. It never went through. I think it was finally paid in the middle of spring semester. By that time, I couldn't register for classes, so I pretty much like moved down there to work for athletics while being a GA. But it ended up where I was basically just like a volunteer in that role. I lost a lot of money during that time. It was a lot of obstacles thrown at my way, but I was doing everything I could to get out of there. That's kind of why I went to Vanderbilt to work. And luckily, that was how I met Hammer. Well, how I came to work for you, Hammer, at RMU. You were basically my guiding light that helped me, get out of that situation.
I love that story because CJ, not because he said I was a guiding light. I love that story because you were the only person I ever hired at Robert Morris that the situation got better when you got to Robert Morris. Everyone else, it got worse, but you, it was like, man, this place is great. They actually pay the bills.
Yeah, definitely.
So you were so happy. But I remember you came into Robert Morris and something, your coaching style was very different. I've told you this, like you taught me a lot about coaching. It took me time to understand it. You are a very different personality on the floor than I am. But, I think about volleyball, your most successful team when you were there, who loved you, who, it was always a fight after you left because no one was Ryan.
They still talk about you to this day, I'm sure.
They do.
At least Danny and Dale.
Yeah. When we had Ryan.
Dudes.
But your coaching style is very different than a lot of strength coaches out there.
How would you describe it? Can you remember?
Calm. It's just a calm coaching style. It's control the room. I've often said, judge a coach not on their program, judge them on how they run their room. And you run a room great, but you run it very different than I did. And like I said, it took me time to understand it and understand that. Like I said, I learned a lot from that experience. But what are your thoughts on your coaching? How did it develop?
I think when I was an intern, it was a unique situation for me because I had these two different dichotomies going on. I was working for football, so I saw Craig Fitzgerald, who embodied this. He calls it the hair on fire mentality, and I'm a chameleon. I can kind of adapt whatever situation I'm thrown into. So when I was in the football world, I could bring the intensity. I can be loud. I can be like that person who's always on. Then I kind of had the opposite side of that with Cam Davidson at Penn State with volleyball and track, who Cam definitely still has that intense aspect, but he can kind of roll back, let the room take care of itself, but control and make sure that everything needs to get done the way that it needs to be done. So I think over time I realized, hey, like I love Fitz, I love that mentality, but like I'm not Fitz, I'm not going to be a football guy. And I kind of realized like what's more natural to me is this calming and collected style of coaching. And you always said it best, like be yourself on steroids, right? And I think it took me a little bit to figure out who I was supposed to be in the coaching world. But once I figured that out, I mean, it really just flowed naturally for me.
I said that quite often because I think it's true. Like you should just be an your own person, not exaggerated. And like I said, Fitz is a whack job. And he coaches like that. But without Fitz, you wouldn't have been able to squat next to JJ Watt.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You have to tell us about it now.
Yeah, I was
topic.
very fortunate to have gone out and visited Fitz when he was with the Houston Texans at the time, 2 years in a row. And it was the first year I went out there. I went out and I stayed with him for about 3 or 4 days, and it was actually Brian Cushing that I had the chance to squat
Brian,
next
that's
to.
right.
Now
Brian
that dude was
Cushing.
muscled up.
Brian Cushing, Joe DeFranco,
The,
legend
the
right there.
OG of DeFranco.
He's the OG, yeah. And being around him and being like, damn, I'm just this chump from Scranton, like I'm nobody. Here I am lifting next to one of the most famous players in the NFL. And that was just an awesome experience for me. And then I had gone back a year later, and I had the chance. I think I was traveling with Charlotte at the time to go out there, and I met some other guys, but it just didn't compare to that experience lifting next to Cushing.
What's Cushing doing now? Isn't he coaching?
No clue.
I think he might be.
Probably tossing iron.
I heard some rumors out there that
Wouldn't be surprised.
That he was coaching. All right, so now you had success at Charlotte. You moved on from Charlotte. You went to DePaul, and I know we had this conversation that the private sector kind of came to you, and you put yourself in position for it too. But what now at this point in where you're at, what was the defining moment, the thing that made you make that change from the collegiate setting to the private setting?
The jump.
Yeah, I think, Ham, you know how I was at Robert Morris. I mean, I was like, I lived, I breathe, like everything. I can spend the entire day in the weight room. Like this has literally been my life for so long. And I think over time, I've really started to realize like how much of a life is out there besides just the time that you spent in the weight room. And it was probably just getting married and meeting my wife that really allowed me to like see what else is out there in the world. So just wanting to be at home with her more, knowing that we're starting our life together, building a family. I didn't want to be that coach that had to work 12, 14 hours a day for very little pay while sacrificing the time to be at home and seeing my family. And then I also knew that for me to take the next step in my career, I wasn't going to be able to stay in Chicago. I would have had to travel and uproot my family. My wife's from Chicago here. Her family's from here. This is kind of what we decided. This is where we want to settle and start building our own roots of a family. So for me, it was like, I have an opportunity come my way where I can still coach. I'm basically doing my own thing in the private sector. I've had a lot of clients come at me through this opportunity, and I'm making significantly more money, and that's all great. But most importantly, it's given me more time. Here I am on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. here in Chicago, and I'm at home in my apartment. In the collegiate setting, I never would have been able to do anything like this.
No chance.
No, because you'd have a coach calling you, yelling at you, asking why you're not at work. Well,
Right.
That's, I mean, the biggest thing for me as well. I don't miss that one bit. I know CJ doesn't miss that one bit. It's the reality is they own you.
Could you, for the people that don't know, could you give a quick rundown of like your typical day as a college strength coach? Like what, maybe from wake up to bedtime?
Yeah, I mean, quite often it's a 4:30 or 5 a.m. Wake up time. Typically a session in the weight room may be starting at like 6 a.m., which means that I'm probably going to want to arrive by like 5:15, 5:20 to give myself enough time to I'd like to set up the room, make sure I know how it's going to flow properly. But in my head, I'm kind of going over like the mental checklist of what I want to accomplish. Then I most likely would have a training group from 6 to 7 a.m. Might have to do a quick turnaround, 7 to 8 a.m. Again, 8 to 9 a.m. Now, a lot of athletes at that time maybe are going to class. Maybe that falls between like a 9 to 2 or like a 10 to 3. So as a college coach, you may have a small gap in your day, but that's oftentimes where like I'm in meetings with coaches, helping plan practices. We're going over data. We're maybe I'm doing a rehab. I was actually in charge of our return to play process at DePaul as well. So there's always something to be done during that morning time. Then again, I'm basically back in groups from maybe 1 or 2 p.m. on until 6 or 6:30 at night, then get back home, maybe 7 p.m.-ish, have dinner, basically wake up, do it all over again.
You make it sound so sexy.
Wow, it was pretty smooth, but what are words? So what about like so living the college strength coach life and getting out of it for a little bit, let's go back to like 12 or 13 years ago. Why did you get in? What was so, as Hammer
Well,
says, sexy about it?
but I think delve into your personal path along training. How I think that's important too with you.
Yeah, I think, growing up, I was like a stereotypical fat kid. Like, you guys ever see that movie from like 1997 called Angus? You ever hear
Josh,
that
we
movie?
can get a picture, Josh.
I think
There's a
Josh might have
picture.
done
Yeah,
a review.
fine.
Josh is
You
looking it
guys
up.
should watch it.
Wow, that was
You guys
quick.
should watch it after this. But I think about like Angus. Like, Angus was kind of like the fat kid in school. A lot of people like made fun of him, that type of thing. Now I wasn't on like that regard where like a lot of people were making fun of me. I was kind of like the funny fat kid. But the thing that really hurt me was like I was somebody who had like I lacked zero confidence. Growing up for me was really tough. I lost my mom when I was 5 years old. And then a short time after that, about a year and a half later, I lost my uncle in a tragic car accident. So I think like having this element of death like follow me around like growing up kind of like really messed me up. And it wasn't until, and I think what I did personally was I found food as my salvation. Like, that was like my reward. Like, I would often come home from school, sit down, play some video games, and just like munch on some terrible food, right? So I was like really inactive, non-moving life. My family from Scranton, we like a lot of like fried food, fast food, soda. It was my life for a long time. My cousin brought me to the local YMCA when I was 13. And since that moment, my life forever changed. I started training. I fell in love with iron, but more importantly, I saw the results that I was seeing physical results, but I was also starting to notice a change with my mind. And then I was somebody who kind of got into athletics kind of late. I think I was like, I was playing baseball and doing that type of thing, but I started really getting into athletics around that time as well. I was never really a great athlete, but the thing that made me succeed in athletics was how hard I worked in the weight room. Those results showed on the court, showed on the field. It allowed me to basically develop leadership characteristics where I was starting to teach my classmates how to lift, how to do these certain movements. So my sport coaches took note of that, and they made me captain of many of my sports teams growing up. So I think seeing that transition of basically like fat kid with no purpose, no confidence in life, to being like the strongest kid in school, to the captain of these teams, and then seeing that in athletics, I found out about strength and conditioning. I think it was my junior or senior year of high school. And I was like, whoa, like I can basically do the thing that I love most, lift weights or train, and teach others how to do that at the high level, at athletic level, and hopefully have the same impact on others that it had on myself. So that was really the main driver there. I had a knack for teaching. I think I wanted to be like a history or an English teacher. Those are some things that I really liked in high school. But when I really discovered that, hey, I can teach people how to train, that was really what, drove me to wanting to become a strength and conditioning coach.
That's pretty dope.
And I think a lot of strength coaches share that similar story where it's, hey, training, I don't want to say save my life, but in many instances changed your life. And I think all of us, we train for different reasons, and it fills that void within us. And, to be, whenever Tenzing describes to people what I do, it's like, hey, it's not much different than his teachers. We just teach through the physical instead of through the mental, which, can lead to the mental. And I think your story is great because of that. It was just as much a mental game as a physical game. So tell us about Rhino Strength. Tell us about the business. How's it going?
Yeah.
What is it?
Booming.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, it's I was really lucky that when I moved to Chicago, I met some local business owners here who run a small niche studio out of Lincoln Park in Chicago, where I was brought on as a trainer. And I basically just ran a few sessions weekly. And then about 6 months, maybe 8 months ago or so, I was approached about possibly coming on there full time. And for me, I think it was really hard because I never really saw myself in just a personal training style role. But I think what also made it a little bit easier for me was the fact that I already had clients. I saw the impact I was making. And then I also saw that it really wasn't that much different from what I was doing in the collegiate setting. Like I'm still training people. I'm still coaching. I'm still making this impact. So January 1st, I basically went at it full time. So Rhino Strength is partnered with a small studio here called Studio Del Corpo. I mostly train busy professionals from the ages of 30 to 50. And I run it very similar to like a college style atmosphere. You know, we're coming in, we're warming up maybe 8-10 minutes or so. Then we're just getting into our training. It's often in the form of supersets. We're hitting a lot of movements during that time, just getting these people the most bang for their buck. We're including conditioning in there as well. And then often ending these sessions with stretching or cool down purposes. And then the other area of Rhino Strength that's been also really a great thing is diving into the online coaching world. And I'm actually working with a lot of my former athletes that I've had along the way. So with Rhino Strength online coaching, I'm basically writing programs for these former athletes or whoever it might be. But I'm doing twice a week check-ins. We're doing like monthly programming that's structured around the person's fitness goals or their training goals. And then I'm trying to do it where I'm creating a community of us. So I'm basically trying to create Team Rhino Strength that maybe have had athletes from RMU, Charlotte, DePaul, Penn State along the way to come together where the commonality is me as their strength coach, but we're all working together and supporting each other with the same purpose of improvement.
And I think it plays in nicely to your big announcement we heard about yesterday, I believe. Drop it on CJ.
Drop the hammer, man. I'll be excited. You won't be able to see under this mask, but I'm excited.
With the online portion, I've partnered with Team Builder, which I think is a great platform to deliver these workouts. But I was asked by a good friend of ours and also a former RMU intern, David Kitchen, to come on board to serve as part of their newfound author team. So I'm going to be contributing weekly or monthly articles to the Team Builder blog. What I'm basically going to be focusing on is taking principles from the sports performance world and talking about how I adapt them to the Gen Pop world, as well as sharing lessons along the way that maybe mentors have taught me, just things in general that I think if I knew as a young coach would have saved me a lot of headaches and possibly made me more successful in the long term.
You know, you said something there which I'm convinced is not true, and I'm going to say it. And I think you're right, but I still think it's untrue.
Light them up.
You can, for all the years I've been doing this, you see a young person, you see they're going to make a mistake, you see they're going to trip, and you say, you're going to trip. And they go, no, I'm not. And you say, you're going to trip. Step over it. And they say, no, I'm not. I don't think you can prevent them from not tripping, but I think you can help them on the impact. In other words, people are going to screw up. Like I've seen it for 20 years. And I say I think you're wrong, but I think you're actually right. Because I think you can soften the blow when people do make a mistake. Because the reality is 20 years, and when I leave, I still have the same frustrations I had 20 years ago. When I have a young person, I say something to them, and they go, no, I'm going to do it this way. And you go, please don't do it that way. Please don't do it that way. And they do it that way. And I think what you're doing is helping them when they do hit the bottom, bounce back up a little easier because they're more prepared for that mistake. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't want to, there's a quote I love, and I think it goes like, failure shows us the way by showing us what isn't the way. And I love that because if I didn't fail at different points along in my career, I wouldn't be here today talking with you guys. So I'm happy that I failed, and I'm happy that I learned from that. And I think that is an important part of the coaching journey. But yeah, I would agree. I think there is like that stigma associated with failure, that like failure is like a bad thing and it's going to set you back. It's going to destroy you. Right. So I don't want other coaches to think like that. I think with my experience, like if other coaches were in my position with the Tennessee State debacle, I think a lot of people would have quit. I had a lot of people during that time, friends, family members, telling me to move back home, get a different job, find something different. And I stayed true to what I knew my main purpose was. And if I didn't allow myself to keep failing like I did, I really wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be here in Chicago. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have come to Chicago and met my wife. I wouldn't be running Rhino Strength right now. So I hate the cliche, but I do think everything happens for a reason.
And see, I'll even add something to that. I've always said, I don't think everything happens for a reason. I believe wise people find reasons in the things that happen, and they learn those lessons. And I think all three of us can say, like, either being let go from a job or similar to such a situation, you weren't necessarily let go, but your job basically ceased to be, was a huge blessing. Going through it's not always easy. The best thing that happened to me professionally was being let go. My life is 10 times better than it was 3 years ago. I make more money than I did 3 years ago. I have more time. And I think learning from those lessons is such a huge thing. And I think that you hit the nail on the head there, is that continue to fail forward.
Yes. Yeah. And that's kind of the messages that I want to help promote to the young coaches out there, because, I'm sure, unfortunately, my situation is probably not going to be the last that occurs out there, right? Like, this business is still messed up. It's still a cutthroat business. And I want to do all I can to help give back.
Do you think it's getting worse or better?
Man, I honestly think right now, big lens, it's getting better. But what I don't love is the arguments and the banter that occurs on social media. Like, I love social media because I think it's a great educational platform, but like, I really don't go on Twitter anymore, just because of all this. Like, strength coach Twitter is just arguing all the time, right? So instead of like
you're wrong
talking about how we can,
exactly. I gotta yell at you, sorry.
How can we like push the profession forward, or like, what are we doing in our free time to improve us? I think everybody's just like going on Twitter and like arguing, or just like, and I can't imagine that's like creating more positive feelings in these people. Like, I'm a big believer that if you're in like a negative situation, or you're placing negativity on somebody else, that's probably coming back and reflecting on you, right?
No doubt. So do you think we should grab players by the helmets and bash our skulls in them to get more credentials up as strength coaches? Do you think that's a good look?
No, I don't. I'm a WWE guy, right? Like,
yeah.
I think about the college strength and conditioning coach profession, and like, I never wanted to be recognized as this guy who's just a total meathead running around. And I also think it sends them, like, we are educated professionals that are meant to be teaching, empowering, leading this next generation of athletes. I didn't want to be seen as like somebody that can be made fun of in a movie, or like almost like a comic book character, right? And that's often what is portrayed. Once ESPN, or once these platforms get a hold of these people, they just like love to glamorize that, right? I'll always remember it. People, like my friends, would always be sending me people, hey, you should be like this guy. You should act like this guy. I'm like, that's not me. That is not the message I want to send. If this is what you think I do as a strength and conditioning professional, I think I better be changing jobs.
It's funny because we had one of the quote unquote leaders of the profession on 60 Minutes a few years back. And I don't know if you remember that. And I remember thinking, what an opportunity for the industry to say, hey, we say what you just said. We educate these students. Mm-hmm. We empower these students. We mentor these students. And instead, he was talking about putting spinners on Cadillacs.
Caddies.
And
basically making us the mullet of the fitness industry.
Yeah, and that it perturbed me, because it was a national stage, which we don't get very often. And when we have a national stage, I would love to hear someone say what you just said. And and this is where you're much more of an optimist about the profession than I am, strength and conditioning, because you say you have friends text you that. I've had coaches text me that. Why aren't you like this guy? I'm like, because that guy, I don't want to be like that guy.
A jag.
Yes, Yin's guys are Jags.
But I would say it's pretty cool stone coaling some Red Bulls to get your team hyped up. I would do that.
Someone did crack a couple of Red Bulls.
Because I did do that. And they got hype. And I think that's a good time to do it with you around the boys and you're ready to go.
And so, yeah, actually, which leads to a great question. What's the balance there? Because, we have all done dumb things. I remember when we painted Don Day's head and sent him in the locker room. So what's the balance?
You got to live, dog.
I think you got to have a little bit of it. I think Fitz is a good example of that. I mean, I think Fitz is like, he's a crazy guy. And there were, some clips from a few years back at Penn State. He was like taking his shirt off before a game and doing some like worms on the sideline to get the team fired up. But he is a guy who, I never would have compared him to these other guys that I've seen with like the cutoffs, bashing helmets and all that type of stuff. Maybe he was like that in his earlier years. I don't really know, but he was still a guy who the buy-in was like anything else. Plus the respect that I saw him command across the board was just unparalleled. And I don't know if he would have had that same amount of respect if he was just some crazy nut who didn't exhibit the passion and exhibit the education and the business mind that he had and the leadership qualities. So I do think that the way that he presented himself also is perfect in the football world. Like he can get those guys fired up. And when it's time to act like that, there's a time and place for it. But, like a random Saturday afternoon game, maybe that's not the time and place. So yeah, I do think there's a balance, but it's probably going to depend on the sport, the situation of the school. There's probably a multitude of factors.
So you're saying you don't own a sleeveless polo?
I don't.
Oh man, you gotta cut.
That's a bad look, dog.
You gotta cut the sleeves off full for game day. Josh just gave us a finger and said, "I do have a sleeveless polo." But I have seen strength coaches with the sleeveless polo. I'm not going to lie. It irks me. Like,
tucked into the khakis.
You got it tucked and tied at all times.
Actually, Ryan, mine is a Stone Cold Steve Austin sleeveless polo.
Well, that's fair. It's fitting.
That fires me up.
There you go.
Can I get a woo?
No, that's wrong.
I know
You're
Ric
just
Flair.
so
I
wrong.
know it's Ric Flair.
Stop
Nature
trying.
boy.
You got to stop trying.
He's a Ric Flair
We
guy.
should have left
Please
it
give
and break
up.
the glass.
16-time world champion.
Woo! There it is.
That was electric.
Yeah.
All right, listen.
It's bad when you do it.
I wish I could. I wish I could mute him.
He is very Gen Z.
Gen X, bro.
X?
I'm Gen X. Listen, I'm Gen X. So
Generation X.
So now you're going to dominate the private sector. You're teaming up with Team Builder. That's exciting.
Dude,
and
you're taking over the world.
I'm pretty pumped up. The Team Builder is infested like a staph infection with all the old Robert Morris people. And I keep telling Hewitt we're going to do a takeover one day. Overthrow Hewitt. We're coming in taking over Team Builder.
Hewitt's pretty cool though, man.
He is a cool dude.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll do
can't
that.
really argue with it. So, all right. Young professionals, what you got for us? Give us, you know what? Actually, we haven't even talked about your lifting because you do train at one of the gyms. Let me ask about that. Where do you train now?
Yeah, what are you getting into?
And tell us who once trained there.
How is the iron affecting you?
Man, you see the smile on my face right now.
I saw
You just
light up.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I meant to bring this up earlier.
It's been shaking.
Yeah, so moving to Chicago was great for me. I think when I first moved here, I was training at DePaul, just doing my own thing, spending a real lot of time there. And I kind of realized I needed another place to get out and just kind of have for me that wasn't conflicting with work. And I looked up some local places. I didn't realize that close to one of the world's most famous bodybuilding and powerlifting meccas, Quads Gym, home of one of the best powerlifters of all time, AKA the GOAT, Ed Cohn.
Whoa.
Quads Gym is about 40,000 square feet, 2 floors deep. It has like every single piece of hammer strength equipment ever manufactured. They have like 2 reverse typers, multiple squat racks, every specialty bar created, a nice wide range of machines that probably nobody's ever seen before, from Nebula, Arsenal Strength.
You got the donkey calf raise?
Donkey calf
Yes.
raise, like forearm machines that I've never seen before. The original Nautilus pullover, Like, every single thing that you can love, it's a lifter's happen. So I'm very lucky that I get to train there.
Do you only wear stringers when you're there? 80s and 90s stringers?
No, but I will do that.
Okay. and then like Daisy Dukes and stuff like that. I think it has to.
Yeah,
be,
and like MC Hammer style pants,
those,
that type of stuff.
Yeah, those two, man. That would be great.
I think if you're gonna do that, you have to wear boots then when you squat.
Yeah, probably.
Like the Timberland
close stance boot squats.
Yeah, like a true like OG bodybuilder. Yeah, so you're training at a quads gym, which is amazing. Ed is obviously well respected as the greatest lifter.
Have you seen him there? Have you dapped him up?
So Ed and I have crossed paths a few times, but he tends to come at night when I usually have clients. So I actually haven't ran into him at quads yet.
Oh, Ed's a good dude. I've been lucky enough to spend some time. I actually did a nice video with Ed over quarantine when everyone was locked down and we needed things to do. So I said, hey, we'll get Ed Cohn. And the cool part with Ed is I'll never forget, it was an Instagram live thing. And, people were writing in questions. And someone said, how could I get you to look at my squat? And he goes, send me your squat.
That'll do it.
And, I think people forget, like, Ed Cohn's the GOAT. Powerlifting is not very big. So Ed Cohn does not get as many DMs as people think Ed Cohn gets. If you said, hey, Ed, I'm this person. Here's would you be willing to look at my squat? He might not say no. He might say no. He might be busy. But I don't think people always appreciate that we're really such a small community that everyone knows everyone and everyone respects everyone generally.
So Ryan, are you competing in powerlifting now, or do you compete in anything?
Dude, this guy's shredded up like a Julian.
I know. He looks
salad.
like $1 million on his IG. What are you doing?
Bikini.
Yeah. I competed in powerlifting from 14 to 16 for about 2 years. And then along the way, I try to get back into competing. And then I kind of just like, I don't know, I still have the drive partially, but like Hammer told me a long time ago, he's like, other things will come up that like, you can't be fully invested and be a good power lifter while trying to be a good coach or trying to be, a good family member or all these things, a good friend. So I kind of backed away from trying to be like a great power lifter and spent a lot of time bodybuilding the last few years. Quads was a great place to do that. And knowing that I was going the personal training route, I said to myself, I'm going to do a fat loss transformation of myself. And I basically started it during the middle of quarantine. During that time, I lost about 20 pounds.
Nice.
I got down to my leanest ever, which was awesome for me. And even more importantly, while doing that, I realized that I could maintain the majority of my strength. I didn't really lose that much. So that was something that was pretty motivating. But it was cool doing this thing that inspired all these other people. I had a lot of people reach out to me saying, hey, you look great. Your transformation was awesome. What are some things you can do to that I can do that you learned along the way? So I think it allowed me to become almost more of an authority on the fat loss subject, especially knowing that people also saw my other journey that I've had along the way. Battling fat loss was something I've really kind of done since I've been, I guess since I started training in 2006.
Well, Ryan, last thing I got for you, one piece of advice, young lifter, young coach, young personal trainer. We talked about failing forward and making mistakes, but what's the one take-home thing that hopefully will help them when they do screw up?
Yeah, I think if I've learned anything from all my experiences and my situations is that most importantly, you have to be yourself. I think that if I was trying to be anybody else other than myself along the way, I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I would have learned. I wouldn't have created the relationships that have really propelled me forward in life. And then I think in today's day and age too, being yourself allows you to develop your own niche. We're all coaches, maybe we're all lifters or whatever that might be. And there's so many of us out there, but there's only one of you, right? There's only one Ryan Nosack, one Todd Hammer, like one CJ Jasper, like whatever. Like, and that's what's so cool about it, because while Hammer is going to do a squat video and it's going to be like a lot of the other squat videos out there, there's only one Todd Hammer teaching that video.
Super
and I think
wide,
a lot
super
of
high box.
yeah, for sure.
West
but
side.
I think a lot of people coming up, they psych themselves out, right? Because it's like, well, everybody's already doing this. Yeah, but nobody else is you. So I think that's really something that I've learned along the way. And that's also helped me develop confidence in myself. Going at this thing full time, running my own business, it's definitely not easy, but knowing that I am unique, and the content that I'm putting out it's my take on it. I think that resonates with a lot more people because it's more authentic as well.
I agree. Well, Rhino, thank you for being on. I recently received your card, and I meant to take a picture and send it to you, and I thank you for that. And then Tenzek took it.
Oh, nice.
And it's somewhere in my house.
Did he take the sticker and put it somewhere?
I'll find it one day, stuck to
It's a
something
game of hide and
expensive.
seek.
Like it's gonna be on like one of our like original wooden doors. in
Chinese
our home.
vases.
Yeah, if I had anything expensive, it would be on it. But I do appreciate it. Thank you very much for that.
You got it.
All right, well,
Dude, so wait, the last question
that's
is,
what I was
man,
gonna say.
when are you coming to visit us? Or when are we coming to you? But we could answer that one.
I would love to have you guys here. I got a guest room ready for the two of you. So if you guys want to share a bed, you're more than welcome
Heck
to.
yeah, big spoon.
But you know, it's been tough for me to get back, man. I mean, I
That is Corona.
I haven't been back to Scranton in over, man, it's going on 14 months at this point.
Wow.
I am hoping for, you know, this spring or this summer, I mean, I'm supposed to come out that way to go to Logan and Brittany's like post-wedding celebration. Yeah.
All right.
So I should be up for that. I think that's in June, I want to say. So I will stop by.
Train.
I would love to. Yes, I would love to get a lift.
Bust
in
out the bars.
We have to do it.
Yeah, it's not, you know, we're not Quads Gym, but we are Union Fitness, and we are the only Union Fitness. Much like you said, you know, we know what we're good at. We'd love to have you. And now that I own my van
Down by the river.
we've made a commitment to travel at least once every month somewhere, and we are taking our van, because I'm a van guy, to Colorado this summer. So I will need a place to stop on the way. Chicago's on the way. So we'll have to talk
I would
about
love that.
It is
And we will go to Quads together.
It is a soccer minivan. It's not like a slidey door cool van, but still,
It's
a van.
It has two
nonetheless.
slidey doors. It has now a sink getting finished in it. It has no middle seat, so there's room for bicycles,
to
and
stretch your legs.
it has a tent that comes off the back. It's a cool van.
I love it.
We'll see you soon, big dog.
All right, brother. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
You are the man.